If you'd like to make your NFL games a little more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast, and it is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook app. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years, classic journeyman. Now I got a bunch of media gigs, and I got my buddy Steve Fezzik texting me while I'm calling Army and Middle Tennessee State. I'll be on the call for Louisiana Monroe and Army on Saturday. Monday night in the booth for the G-Men and the Steelers with Ian Eagle, and I love this show. Look, I love the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, love the Fantasy Feast Podcast. Episode 1 of that comes out tomorrow for the week. We'll help you set your lineups and all that stuff, right? Ross Tucker Football Podcast is daily. Tomorrow we've got Andrew Brandt. They're all great. But let's be honest. There's something special about this show. It's just fun. It's fun to place bets on teams and say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we think is going to happen. And I do it with the only 2-time winner of the Super Bowl of professional football gambling, the great Steve Fezzik. You know that Fezzik is the guy at Fezzik Sports. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL on all the various social media platforms. Producer Brian / intern Casey, they both are at Ross Tucker Pod, Twitter and Instagram. Can't tell you how much we appreciate when you just retweet or like, even if you just rate and review the show. You send that to me, Ross at rosstucker.com. I will let you go ahead and ask us a question on the show, just for rating and reviewing the Even Money Podcast. Steve, it's NFL Week 1, and for the first time ever, before we dive into NFL Week 1, I have to ask you if you have any other bets in the playoffs of NHL or NBA that you need to tell people about.
Interesting. I am on the Houston Rockets tonight. I think it's the first good spot in the series for the Rockets. Game 1, the Rockets were gassed off a 7-game series, still won. And Game 2, the Lakers had the zigzag. I think the Rockets give the Lakers all they can handle tonight in Game 3.
Totally agree. In fact, I was just saying that on a different show. I like the Rockets getting the 5 points. I feel like they put a point spread tax on the Lakers every time that the Lakers ever play because people just bet on the Lakers. And I knew that because my dudes over at BetQL.com and on the BetQL app, they like the Rockets. They don't think Russell Westbrook is going to shoot 7 threes again for absolutely no reason. They like the Rockets. You're going to give me 5 points? I mean, they blew them out in Week 1. Then even when you get to the second game, Week 1, the first game, the second game, you get to the point where it was pretty clear in that second game that it was a competitive game. Go to the BetQL.com, enter code ROSS20 for 20% off your first payment. If you live in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Indiana, they got exclusive offers for you. But I'm telling you, all the algorithms, all the info, if nothing else, use it to reassure yourself, reaffirm, confirm, or maybe deny what you were already thinking. BetQL app, BetQL.com, code ROSS20 for your first payment. All right, we've got Brian on the screen, YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL for a reason, Steve. It is finally here. Our bets have been stellar over the years. I'll post on Twitter how good they've been. You know it. I know it. Listeners know it. You ready for this year, Steve?
I am. I will say this, Ross. You did a marvelous job calling the Army game because you could have not gotten a less competitive game, and you kept it compelling. I'll say this about Army and Navy games. I would argue they're some of the easiest ones to live wager. If these teams can run the ball at 5 yards a crack or more, they're unstoppable. They score every single series. There's no variance. If they can't run the ball, they're dead in the water.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think it's a really good point. And you can usually tell pretty early because they either have a good plan for stopping the triple option and they can do it, or they can't. All right, Bri, let's get it going. Hopefully, I got to reach out to the Birdman today. Hopefully, the Birdman is going ahead and grading us again this year, just in case. Stevie Schlabel, Sean Grady, if you guys can be our backup for the Birdman, that would be awesome. Let's do it, Bri.
All right, Ross, let's start off. Game 1 of 256. It's the Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Texans are getting 9 points, not 101, as we're talking about on DraftKings. We'll get to that in a little bit. 9-point favorites are the Chiefs in this one. Over-under is 54.5. Ross started off.
So let me ask you this, Steve, just off the start here. In general, week 1, usually good weeks for you or bad weeks for you?
Interesting question. It's probably my most bet week, but that's because I've been betting since April when these lines came out. So I'm not going to have many plays today, but I have a whole lot of bets. I mean, I got the Steelers -2.5 against the Giants. Well, now I'm leaning Giants now that the line's up to 5.5 or 6. So you get the idea that these have been the most bet into lines already. Now, in a COVID year, I got to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous also about playing against the lines right now because of the uncertainties. I don't have the information I normally have with preseason games.
Right. That was going to be my other question, is with no fans or limited fans, with no preseason games, with all, like, I just don't know. I mean, look, I don't know you could take too much from college football, Steve, in week 1, but it seems like all the games were blowouts. Army killed Middle Tennessee. BYU destroyed Navy. South Alabama somehow beat up on Southern. There weren't really close games. I don't know what that means, if it translates to the NFL or not, but it's just something that stood out to me.
Loser must leave town game, like that old wrestling promo, right? The Southern Miss coach that's like, I don't need this. I'm gone, right?
All right, so I am tempted to lay the 9 points with the Chiefs. I know that it's, not going to be a home crowd or whatever, but it's still opening night. They're at home. It just feels to me like the Chiefs could win this one by double digits. It just goes against everything in me as a former player, Steve, to lay 9 points like that. So I'll just lean to the Chiefs laying the 9.
I'll lean as well. I love the Chiefs. I think they're undervalued despite winning the Super Bowl. 9 straight wins, 9 straight covers. All about Mahomes getting healthy second half of the year, defense getting better under Spagnuolo. I don't like the playoff revenge for the blowout win that favors Houston. I don't like that the weather may not be perfect for the Chiefs to extend. I don't like that Breland is out for the Chiefs, an injury in their secondary. For all those reasons, just a lean to Kansas City.
On to Sunday, Steve, the Baltimore Ravens, -8 at home against the Cleveland Browns with a over-under of 48.5.
I'll lean to the Browns here. Browns did get a win last year. Browns have seen the Ravens' unique offense twice last year, so they should be able to make adjustments. I'm very cautious about new coaches in a COVID year, limited practice, so I don't know how that is going to, go ahead and impact the Browns with Stefanski. But bottom line, the Browns were so poorly coached the last 3 years. Maybe it'll help them even in a COVID year. Just a lean to the Browns.
I'm going for it, Steve. Might be against my better judgment, but I'm putting 1 unit, not a huge bet, but 1 unit on the Cleveland Browns. Here's the logic. The Ravens haven't had a lot of practices to make sure they get all those handoffs and everything, the intricacy of their offense really going, number one. Number two, the Browns, no preseason games. They've been able to work on stopping Lamar Jackson and that offense the entire training camp, the whole time. Number three, I happen to think the Browns are going to be pretty good this year. Odell Beckham Jr., Baker Mayfield, bounce back years. And number four, I know that the Ravens feel like they know what the Browns coaches are going to do, Stefanski on offense and what they're doing defensively, but it's week one and it's new personnel. So they don't really know what they're going to do. All those reasons, I am taking the Cleveland Browns and the 8 points for 1 unit.
All right, Ross, the Philadelphia Eagles at the Washington football team. Washington at home, and they are getting 6 points with an over-under of 43.
Right. So I would lean Philly here, especially with, the statement that Jason Peters is going to play left tackle. That makes me feel better about it as well. I just think going back to the unknown of what's going on this week and what things will be like, there is a new coaching staff in Washington. So, yes, it hurts them from the sense of continuity and chemistry, but it helps them in terms of the unknown a little bit. I think the Eagles probably win the game, but I don't know that I want to lay 6 points. So it's a pass for me. If anything, I guess I'd lay the 6. It's a lean for the Eagles.
I'm going to lean on Washington here. The Eagles, this is a team I wanted to bet on this year because they were so injured last year. Cluster injuries in the defensive secondary, cluster injuries at wide receiver. Well, the Eagles are hurt again. Cluster injuries again at wide receiver, so the rookie Rieger isn't going to play. Jeffrey is out, so all of a sudden you got Deshaun Jackson and very little else. Dallas Goedert should have a big game, but you take a look at Wentz didn't practice last week as well. Their running back is banged up with all these problems popping up with the Eagles. And frankly, remember that week, I think it was 15 game, the Eagles trailed against Washington with 30 seconds to play. Eagles win by 10. Phony win completely. No way they should have covered that game. So I'll lean to Washington. Concerns, of course, with a brand new head coach, though.
Next up, it's the Colts and Jags in Jacksonville, Steve. Jacksonville getting 8 points with a total of 45.
Yeah, I can only look to the favorite. I'm going to lean here. I did bet Indy back when it was 7. I'm not going to lay 8. If you're looking for a teaser, it's a perfectly good teaser as well. Jacksonville, I can't help but think about Miami, how they started last year when there was questions about were they committed to winning and letting Fournette go. I mean, this is a huge deal. They have nothing behind him. So Jacksonville is going to go with Armstead and Chris Thompson at running back. That is a huge downgrade and sends a message to the team. Hey, we don't really care if we win this year. I could only look to Indy, lean Indy.
I would also lean to the Colts as well. I can't lay 8 points on the road NFL Week 1. I just can't do it. I mean, I'm sorry. I know the Jags feel disrespected. I think they'll come out. Whatever fight the Jags have, they're going to have it in this first game. It's just a lean to Indy laying the 8 for me.
Ross, our next game, it's the Jets and the Bills in Buffalo. Where is it? Minus 6.5 points for Buffalo with a low total of 39.5.
So I'll put 1 unit on the Bills, laying the 6.5. That is a decent amount of points. I think the Jets are really bad. Their receivers, Mims and Perriman, have both been beat up all through camp. Their O-line, they're still trying to figure that out and move guys around. Now they're going to Buffalo. I know there's not a crowd, but still, I just feel like I think the Bills win the game, and I'd be surprised if the Bills didn't win by at least a touchdown. 1 point. I'm higher on the Bills than most people. One unit on the Bills laying the 6.5.
I'll lean to the Bills. I'm with Ross. If I knew that Perriman and Mims, if one of them was going to miss, they're both probable, I would be on the Bills because I don't trust Darnold to be able to handle adjustments and to have to go with his 4th and 5th wide receivers. And frankly, I think Robbie Anderson leaving is a big deal. And now Crowder's your number 1. So no playmakers for the Jets. We saw nothing from Bell in the running game. Brand new O-line, supposedly improved, but it's going to take time to gel. I'll lean to the Bills.
Steve, let's go to New England. Patriots are hosting the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins getting 6.5 points. Our total is 43.
I cannot bet this until I see Cam Newton play. It is possible New England might be really good if Cam returns to his 2018 level when he was tremendous, actually, his first 8 games of the year. But I got to see it first. With that uncertainty, I got to pass.
I'm going to put a unit on the Dolphins. Everything you just said, Steve, makes sense. I, too, am a little bit wondering. I think Josh McDaniels will have some really creative things for Cam Newton, and so that worries me a little bit. But, man, they lost a lot. I mean, they lost a lot on defense. They lost their right tackle. Fitzpatrick starting. They just won week 17 up there in New England. Now you're going to give me 6.5 points again. One unit on the Dolphins getting 6.5.
Chicago at Detroit, Ross. Bears getting 3 points with a total of 44.5.
Just to lean to the Lions for me here. I feel like whatever the Bears have, right, whatever Trubisky can do, he knows he's on thin ice. He knows there's a short leash. Whatever his best is, I feel like you know what? I take that back. I just talked myself into it. I'm putting a unit on the Lions. I feel like no matter what Trubisky says, he knows Foles is over his shoulder. I think the Lions win the game. I think maybe worst case scenario, I push laying the 3. One unit laying the 3 points with the Lions.
And this is another one of those games where I did bet it, but I'm not going to bet it laying 3 because the Lions were laying 1.5 over the course of the summer. Think about this line. The season win number on the Lions is 7. The Bears, it's 8. So the season win number says the Bears are better, and yet the Lions with no fans are laying 3 in this game. So limited home field advantage. The market is saying they hate Mitch Trubisky, and they really think Foles is the better quarterback for the Bears. The Lions are in a good spot in that they went 0-2 in close games against the Bears last year, which with Driscoll and the much despised David Blau, and both of those games were super competitive. The Lions were close in those games. If they were close in those games, they should be able to win this game. I will lean Lions.
Steve, the Falcons are getting 1.5 points at home against the Seattle Seahawks, total 49.
Going to pass this game, but I do want to talk teasers. I know I burned Ross on teasers before, but if you can get 6 points on a dog, whenever they're catching like plus 1.5, and you get them up to plus 7.5, that can be an attractive proposition. I mentioned I leaned to a teaser with Indy. If you need something to play that with, I would look towards Atlanta. I do think that Atlanta D improved so much with Raheem Morris taking over the play calling last year. He's the DC now this year. So I think Atlanta a little undervalued. I'll lean to Atlanta. I think you can use Atlanta in teasers.
So I would just lean Seattle here. It's hard for me to bet against Russell Wilson. It really is. Laying 1.5, I'll pass the game, but I would lean Seattle. Not much of a lean though.
Ross, the Green Bay Packers are getting 2.5 points at the Vikings with a total of 46.
Right. I like the Packers more than other people do. I'm curious as to see what the impact is of Ngakoue this week. The weakness of the Vikings, their corners, is not really a strength of the Packers with the wide receiver issues. I'll stay away from this game, but if I was going to take it, I would take the Packers and the points. That would be my lean.
I will have some best bets coming up, but recurring theme, I made a case big time for the Packers having a ton of value, plus 3.5. As a pro bettor, I will be kicked out of the Sharp Club if I recommend a plus 2.5 bet on a team I had all summer to get 3.5. Nothing has changed, except for Minnesota's upgrade a little bit with Ngakoue. And yet you could have had 3.5. So if you like Green Bay 2.5, you should have bet it last month, plus 3.5. I'll pass.
First game ever as a Las Vegas Raider. They are at the Carolina Panthers. Raiders laying 3.5 on this one, Steve. Total 47.5.
Oh, my clients are going to wonder about this. I have to put an explanation. Okay, I gave out the Raiders -1 as a best bet. Well, now that it's 3.5, sure. I will go ahead and take the underdog plus 3.5. The 3 is so important in the NFL, and I get it. You want to bet against Carolina. Carolina has the most transition in the NFL, and we're seeing money coming in against, in a COVID year, teams with a new coach, a new quarterback, etc. But the Raiders, they lost Williams, their number 1 wide receiver. I mean, who is Carr going to be throwing the ball to? Renfro and rookies. And the Raiders can't stop anyone on defense. So it will be a shootout, asking them to get separation too much. I'll put 2 units plus 3.5 on Carolina.
Wow. That's a big bet there, Steve. I like the Raiders this year. I don't like the Panthers this year, but that doesn't mean I'm taking the Raiders laying 3.5 points in this game. Can't really do it. I'd rather go ahead and go to DraftKings, where they've moved the spread to Kansas City plus 101 points for all users. Think about that. It's free money. If you've never made a bet before, or if you've made bets but you haven't made it on DraftKings, get the DraftKings Sportsbook app, deposit whatever you want to deposit. Just make sure you use the code Ross so you get the deposit bonus, and then put a max bet, I think it may be $50 on the Chiefs, and win those $50. Then do the free survivor pool as well, which is awesome. Love survivor pools. Love that you can enter for free and get a share of up to $100 million in giveaways. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code Ross to take advantage of this no-brainer of an offer. That's promo code Ross to get in on all of the action for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or PA only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, what do we got, Brian?
You are doing the Raiders and Panthers. Or did you already pass that one?
I passed it.
Okay, so let's go to the 4 o'clock games. And Ross, we'll start with you. Chargers at the Bengals. Joe Burrow's debut. 3.5 points is what the Bengals are getting, with a total of 43.
Yeah, kind of torn on this one. I like the Bengals this year more than others. I don't like the Chargers, but I'm scared for that Bengals offensive line going against Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram and those guys. But no Derwin James on the back end. What the heck? 1 unit on the Bengals getting 3.5 points as a home dog.
And I'll agree, and this is going to be a best bet I am on. The Bengals plus the 3.5. So we have, Brian, a best bet.
The best bet.
Ross mentions it. The loss of Derwin James, that's a big deal. You lose one of your very best defenders. And Keenan Allen's a really good wide receiver, but you lose another good wide receiver, and Williams not playing here. So that is going to be an issue. Rookie quarterbacks, I'm okay backing in the first month. No tape on them. So Burrow, because of that, will have an advantage in his first few games in terms of adjustments he wants, or his transition and any weaknesses he may have starting out. And frankly, the Chargers are masters at blowing games like this, close games, finding creative ways to not just not cover, but to lose them outright. You know, one quick note on the DraftKings getting the 101 points for Kansas City. Ross, I think they should give us like plus 21 points, not 101 points. Make us at least sweat the free money. What do you think?
All right, Steve, next up, we're going to go to San Francisco, or actually Santa Clara. The Cardinals at the 49ers, and the Cardinals are getting 7 points with a total of 47.5.
All right, I'll put 1 unit on Arizona. Kyler Murray has been very good against the 49ers defense. So Arizona was able to put up points in both games last year. And with Hopkins now, I think Kingsbury will be able to use the 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. I expect Arizona to get their points. And I don't see how San Francisco is going to be able to separate. They lose their number 2 wide receiver, Sanders. Samuel, if he plays, he's not close to 100%. Ayuk isn't, he's banged up as well. So wide receiver cluster injuries is going to make it very difficult for San Francisco to separate here. I will be on Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona played them great both games last year. They're getting 7 points. Even Bosa and Ford are a little banged up coming off the edge in this game. This is one of my best bets of the weekend. I love Arizona getting 7 points. 2 units, Arizona getting the 7. Best bet for me and Steve again.
The best bet.
Ross, Tom Brady makes his debut with the Tampa Bay Bucks in New Orleans. The Saints favored by 3.5, total 49.
I mean, when's the last time, Steve, Tom Brady was a 3.5 point underdog? It's kind of unbelievable, right? And for that fact and that fact only, there's no home field advantage in New Orleans anymore. There's no fans there. I'm putting a unit. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks win the game. 1 unit on Brady and the Bucks getting 3.5 points.
I'm going to pass the game. You know, it's interesting. You look at two quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, and you look at their accuracy, and the narrative is that these are still elite quarterbacks. The reality is I went to Next Gen Stats and looked at their accuracy, and both these quarterbacks have been below average quarterbacks in accuracy the past 2 years in terms of how many they completed versus what they should have completed. So I'm down on both quarterbacks. I'm looking to bet against Tampa because of that. But I'm worried about Drew Brees. I'm worried about the locker room. I'm worried about his focus and his commitment. And because of that, I'm going to pass this game.
Sunday Night Football, Steve. The Dallas Cowboys at the brand new SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles against the Rams. Rams, though, at home, they are getting 3 points. Total 52.
3 is the magic number. I'll take the Rams plus the 3 for a unit. You know, the Cowboys, I'm super high on them. And they really should have won 10 games last year. But the strength of the Cowboys is always the offensive line. And now Frederick isn't playing their center. And they just lost another one of their linemen. And all of a sudden, you know what? If they don't have this awesome O-line to grind it out for Zeke Elliott, who doesn't seem to break tackles anymore, all of a sudden, you got to wonder about how effective the passing game is going to be. So Rams 1 unit plus 3.
Yeah, the center and left guard issues, and then you've got La'el Collins out at right tackle. That's a little concerning to me. So I'm going to pass the game. Otherwise, I would have leaned to the Dallas Cowboys.
We've got 2 Monday Night Football games, Ross. We'll start on the East Coast, the one that you're going to be doing. Pittsburgh at the New York Giants. G-Men getting 5.5 points at home, 47.5 total.
Kind of feel like the only way you could go here is with the Giants. I mean, that's a lot of points to lay on the road for the Steelers with Big Ben being an unknown. So I'll just lean Giants, getting the 5.5. Maybe they win. If not, I think they probably keep it close. So I'll lean to the Giants getting the 5.5 points.
Yeah, and I think this is one we're going to just sit back and wait because the narrative is that these brand new coaches that are unproven are really going to struggle with limited practices. And you're seeing all the money steaming on the Steelers. It's already up to 6 in some spots. And I got to tell you, getting 7 versus getting 6 versus getting 5.5 is so much better. It's a Monday night game, and the Steelers were 8-8 last year with no quarterback play. So there's a strong case to make that they're undervalued. I think the money just keeps coming on the Steelers. Let's be patient. Check back on Monday night to see how many points we can get on those G-men.
Final game of the week, Steve. The second Monday night game. It's Tennessee at the Denver Broncos. Pick 'em with a total of 41.
All right, I am super high on the Titans, much higher than the rest of the country. Mariota, he was bad for the Titans. Titans start 2-4, and Tannehill comes in, and they're good. 7-3. They played very well in the playoffs. You win in New England. You win in Baltimore. You're competitive in Kansas City. What a run. Worried about Derrick Henry and his 380 carries, but that's more of a worry, him bogging down at the end of the year. You add Clowney. They're going for it. So I want to bet Tennessee. However, if there's 1 week you cannot bet against Denver, it's week 1 when they're home. They have been incredibly good, and this makes sense. Teams are not in full football shape to play a full game. I want to ask Ross about this, and really shown up over the years, playing in Denver in altitude. Ross, did you ever play in Denver early in the year, do you recall? And did you have issues regarding that?
Never played in Denver early in the year, but I can tell you this. First of all, it's real. Like the altitude thing is real. Secondly, early in the season, Steve, you are gassed anyway. Like, number one, if you get in the preseason game, I don't care what kind of shape you're in. That first long drive or second drive, you are sucking wind because you just can't replicate being in a game against these guys and what that's like. And that's if you have a preseason game. Then you get to the regular season, and the same thing happens that first regular season game, just because of the intensity and everything. They're not getting that stuff. So I'm going to lean Denver. I'm not going to pick them. I'm not going to put a unit on, but I'm going to lean Denver for the reason, Steve, that you just mentioned, because I do think that absolutely is a factor. Speaking, by the way, Steve, of factors, I think every week we're going to let one of our listeners ask you a question presented by the DraftKings Sportsbook app. So it'll be our DraftKings segment What they need to do is take advantage of the DraftKings Sportsbook app, put in the code Ross. Now, if you're you can sign up no matter where you are and get the app on your phone. And I believe you can deposit no matter where you are. You can only place a wager in the states that are legalized. So do that. Send me a question, ross@rosstucker.com. This is from Diogenes, Derbyshire, Steve. And again, this is the DraftKings Sportsbook segment of the day. He said, I think he was referring back, Steve, to our numbers, up 60-some units combined, the best bets. He said, I wonder how the totals would look if they accounted for the VIG. Is it as easy as taking 0.9 of the total Birdman has and assume a minus 110? Of course, that wouldn't account for Fez's parlays or when he buys half a point or plays his derivative bets. It's hard for people using overseas books because those sites mess with the VIG a lot. You get all sorts of crap like minus 112, minus 114, minus 109.
Yeah, great question. So the answer is it's a little bit complicated. If you're up 66, if you have 66 more winners than losers, then you can't just take back 10% of your expectation, because think about it, if you had 1 million trials, you'd be down, right? If you're only up 66. We haven't had that many plays, so you'd actually have to go through, and moving forward, we're going to start to go ahead. I'm going to start keeping a spreadsheet for all the numbers and what the exact VIG is. So at the end of the year, be able to tell you what the exact units are, going forward.
That's a good point, because that does change. But you know what? We're very open about that. You know what I mean? Like, we're very open that we're just going based on the spread. You got to look at what the VIG is at DraftKings Sportsbook app, what the juice is, if there is a big change. I didn't notice. Almost all the ones I noticed, Steve, were minus 110, minus 110. I mean, I don't know that I noticed anyone's. Okay, Chargers were minus 109, Bengals minus 112. So there is a little bit of that, I guess.
And that's really a distinction without a difference. We always used the term, when I was an actuary, we'd always say that's de minimis, so it'll all even out, so we don't even need to look at that. But when you're starting to lay minus the $1.20s, absolutely that becomes an impact.
He is Steve Fezzik. Great job there. Great question. Keep them coming. Looks like we got a question next week from Bill. Keep them coming. We love the DraftKings question of the week here on the Even Money podcast. Check out Steve and all the great stuff he does at Fezzik Sports. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker 20 NFL season. Good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for listening to the Even Money Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, the Fantasy Feast, Business of Sports, and the College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.